How's everybody doing? Let's get some energy back in here, because this crap is exciting. We have hundreds of years of history built into the process that got us here today, and what lets us do this and associate and carry our firearms and bring our family without fear of the government and repressions. Well, actually, we do have to fear that. There is a long list of people who have come before us, and that does not include the people who have fought and died and gave their lives. I am talking about the people who carved this country out with an axe, with an ox, with a plow. We forget those heroes. Those are the unsungs. Talking about feeling like we can't be safe, feeling like our rights are being trampled everywhere we turn. I'm not from Mass. How many people here came to Mass for this rally that are not Massachusetts residents? Put your hand up. Audience participation, come on. How many? You got a handful? Anybody up there? Why is it, for me at least, coming from New Hampshire, where we're still pretty free, and I open carry all the time, we have no permitting, constitutional carry, we are the live free or die state, and we are fighting like hell to keep it like that. How come when I travel over the border, I can go 10 minutes one side of the border to the other, I feel like I'm getting ready to go to the airport and go through TSA. I'm double checking my backpack and my pockets and making sure I don't have a pocket knife or some nail clippers. I dumped my water bottle out before I crossed the border because I didn't know if I could bring water into Mass. That's how it feels as a New Hampshire resident coming somewhere that does have a lot of tyranny. And oh, how far Massachusetts has fallen. The great history that's been talked about, the great quotes, our American Revolution history, the colonial history, the founding of this country as evidenced by the gifts of God that the Reverend talked about. New England should be full of the most staunch patriots in this country. You think it's not intentional? You think it's an accident when liberals and people who are the commies and the people who hate America and hate freedom and hate everything we stand for, they see a nice place and they go, we're going to ruin that. That place is going to be a shithole in 5 years. You watch. We're about to move there, buy up everything, make it how we want, ruin the market so people who grew up there can't live there, and we're going to run them out, and we're going to make it so uncomfortable that they will actually leave versus staying. How many people here are considering leaving where you live right now for greener freaking pastures? How many? Put your hand up. Right. So there's two questions here. One, is this a tactical redeploy of our assets, of our groups, to where we can actually mass people in numbers, as Hillbilly's talked about, that he's been trying to do for 9 years running, to bring people in to where you actually have a positive vote, to where you can actually get the majority? Or are you just running because you don't have stomach to fight it? That's not a rhetorical question. What have we given up? I saw a guy walking around in like a Revolutionary War outfit. We went through a winter at Valley Forge for this. You know our history. We crossed the Delaware at night in a storm because we knew we needed every advantage we had because we were the underdogs. And we got it done. Americans used to have a get it done, can do, no qualms about it attitude. I call it the Yankee mentality. Make do, make it yourself, or go without. We have a consumerism sickness in this country that drives all this bad policy. People always want something. They want something. They think, oh, well, if I just get that, if I can just keep up with the Joneses. The consumerism, not capitalism, consumerism is driving us into a ground. We have seen this so much with COVID because everybody knows about, oh, well, you're going to lose your job if you don't vaccinate. Your religion, well, we'll grant your religious exemption, but your religious exemption isn't approved. Who made occupational medicine at Dartmouth-Hitchcock Health the arbiter of friggin' religion in this country? Who did that? I don't think anybody. It sure wasn't done by legislative action. It sure was not made into law. All these things that we capitulate to, most of them aren't law, and the things that are law are unconstitutional on face value, and they are null and void. The Constitution says if it's passed, and it is in conflict with the Constitution, it is immediately null and void.
Right, it's out.
I can't remember everything, but I'm going to read some quotes, all right? And that one is important, okay? It is null and void. Red flag laws were brought up. Okay, now I'm going to say some stuff today that's going to upset some people. This is my first time at Hillbillies event. This might be my last, because I will not sugarcoat to tell you what you want to hear. You don't have to give up your damn guns if somebody shows up at your house with a red flag law. I mean, anybody remember the Bundy events? And I'm not an expert on it, and generally speaking, the government was doing some shady stuff, shady enough that enough people felt it was BS, and people traveled from all over the country to go out and support their fellow Americans with arms and stood face to face like a modern day Lexington Green. If we had a Bundy Ranch style event where patriots like us, all of us right here, this is enough people to do it again. If we all said no, and that happened every damn week in our country somewhere, the government would get the picture. Because who runs the show? Not them, us. Read my shirt. I made this shirt back in early 2020, and I've heard this phrase thrown around a bunch, and I heard it said with the convoy. My shirt says, I do not ask the government for permission. The government asks permission from me, and it should ask permission from you, and it should ask permission from you, ma'am, and you, sir. It should ask permission from every single person who is a registered voter, who is 18, who can participate in the damn process. That is how it works. And people think, oh, well, they're in charge. That's not how it works anymore. We don't have any say. Well, I have a conspiracy theorist friend. He's probably right about 99% of the stuff now we've seen. But I have a conspiracy theory friend who's been in this game for a long time, decades. And he told me when I started to get to know him, he says, we have a very old saying in the conspiracy circles. He says, if voting mattered, they wouldn't let you do it. Now with electronics, that has been called into even more question. I don't care what you vote. I'm not here stumping for a political party. I'm stumping for values. But everybody should want free and fair elections where you know, guaranteed, your vote is not obstructed, is not thrown in a dumpster, is not photocopied 700 times. That is good for America. What is good for America is good for me. It is good for my family. Okay? That is what we need, because there's always going to be bickering. There's always going to be people on the left and people on the right, and there's always going to be that. There always has been and there always will be. That's one of the things that makes us great. We have freedom of speech, all speech. Hate speech does not exist. Do not use that language. Do not give in to that stuff. There's only speech which somebody does not like, and they're not articulate enough, or energetic enough, or smart enough to combat your language with their own points. Those kind of things, those talking points come out of stupidity and the fact that the powers that be, as the Reverend said, they're very smart. They didn't land there by accident. They didn't become our overlords, our modern day monarchs by accident because they tripped and fell. Well, Kamala might have tripped and fallen onto something to get where she is, but that's another point. They didn't do this by accident. They know the vast majority of Americans are lazy, fat, dumb, and happy. Okay, we've heard time and time again, numbers are great, so I'm going to give you some numbers. Okay, the Second Amendment rally, it's Flag Day, and I'll get to that, but I want to talk some numbers, some broad numbers. Okay, what's killing Americans? Told you I was going to say some shit that's going to upset some people. What is killing Americans? Cardiovascular disease, 370,000 a year. Heart disease, 600-something thousand, but 370 is specifically coronary artery disease. Diabetes, 85,000 a year. Before the government shut down my gym, my wife and I, on top of our full-time jobs, and her going through nursing college, full-time student, we ran a personal training gym that we bootstrapped and we bought our equipment dollar by dollar by dollar as we made it. We were building a personal training gym. What was shut down in COVID? Gyms, mom and pop stores. What was open? The liquor store, fast food, takeout. There was a Forbes article. Forbes, if you don't know, is all about money and finance, and Forbes magazine. There's an article you can go look up. In the midst of COVID, everything that objectively makes us stupid and helpless and dependent and crappy was up at record numbers. Gaming, online gaming, internet, pornography, fast food, streaming services, Xbox. It was all up, record numbers. The New Hampshire State Liquor Store, those people not only were essential workers, which some of the real big drinkers here might argue that's essential, but that's another point. They were essential workers, and not only were they essential, They were paid hazard wages to keep the state in business, making money to keep you down. This is happening in front of our face, and we do nothing about it. And people have soft language, they use soft words, and the time for that is over. What does the left do that makes them so successful? And the people who hate freedom in general, what do? They embrace the most crazed, energetic, far off, out of the world, loony bin people and put them center stage. They are their mascots, the AOCs, the Pelosi's, you pick whoever you dislike the most, the influencers online that are literally psychotic or they're loony. And those are the heroes of the movement. And then what is right hand? Well, actually, what does most of America do? The people who are most extreme in the conservative, pro-freedom, leave me the F alone government circles, what do? Well, we're fringe. Well, we're domestic terrorists. If you're a veteran, you're familiar with being called a deplorable. Proud deplorable. Proud fringe. I don't have these views because I just fell and bumped my head and said, oh, I'm going to be a conservative now. I'm going to be an American. I'm going to work on building this and building this so I can take my values someday. That didn't happen by accident. It's a choice. Everybody here has choices to make. When you leave here, what will you do? We cannot control everything that happened post showing up here. That is done. You were responsible for it. You made your bed. And even if somebody held a gun to your head, since we're talking about guns, even if somebody held a gun to your head and said, you will do this, there are people in history who have said, no, blow my brains out. I will not sacrifice values. I will not give up unalienables. Because there is nothing that can be returned that is of equal level to be giving up those rights. That's right from the documents, the Constitution. There are certain rights which are of such value that nothing can be gained in return for them, so they cannot be given, even if you want. It is not possible for you to give them up. Because why do we give up some rights? Why do we give up some things? Because there is a certain expectation we will get something back for that. Okay? The Constitution is a contract. Our founding documents is a contract between an organization and us that says, I will give up a little tiny bit of something, the really non-essentials, because I will get something out of it. Let me ask you a question, audience participation time. Because this isn't about me. I can talk all day. I can go on the podcast, I can sit with Hillbilly, I can ride around, I can talk. I can give you my experience, my opinion, because I can only speak from my perspective, my life. But really, it's about you. What brought you here, right? So, somebody answer the question. From your perspective, from where you're sitting, with what you've done with your life, where you've traveled, the things in your pocket, the money you have, whether you wear boots or high heels, whatever age you are, wherever you grew up, first generation immigrant, 13th generation baker, I don't care. With what you bring to this table right here as the world's smallest minority, let's hit that point really quick. I'll come back to that question. Minority identity politics. This is a great talking point when you end up in a debate and when you end up talking to your reps and your senators and all these people and any leftists, any friends you might have. Oh, well, the black vote, the women vote, the redneck vote, the Second Amendment vote, the this vote, the that. That's all BS. I don't care what side it comes from. Because we have a constitution and a three-part system, judicial, executive, sorry, I'm going to lose my words sometimes here. We have a three-part system. There's checks and balances, right? No one part of the government is judge, jury, and executioner. It's broken up. The legislature, the Senate, the president, right? We have these checks and balances. Okay? I went off topic, sorry. All right, I'll get it back. The question. The question, right? And I'll come back to it. In your lifetime, this is the minority one. Yes, all right, sorry about that. Minority politics. You as the individual sitting right here, ma'am, right in front of me, you are the minority vote. You, sir, the Asian guy behind her. That's not an insult. You obviously have the Asian hair. You are a minority vote. The guy behind you, you are a minority vote. I'm a minority vote. Hillbilly's a minority vote. Our government is designed to protect individual rights, not collective rights. Not the rights of when we get a whole bunch of people together and the majority of people say it's okay to murder this guy. No, we don't do lynch mobs. That is pure democracy.
That's right.
A constitutional republic is the sheep with the firearm contesting the vote when the three wolves vote that we're going to eat the sheep for dinner. Anybody heard that one?
Yeah.
The sheep and the wolves? Yeah. We are not a democracy. We are a republic. It's important that we keep that in mind when people bring up the minority. I'm a minority too. Nobody has the individual components that make me, that make you, you. We have lost so many fundamentals. And then we use soft language and generalities and, oh, well, we'll get it next time to cover it up. There's an expression, the Republicans or your conservatives, we have an excellent track record of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. We find ways to sabotage ourselves. One sec. We find ways of sabotaging ourselves and we go along with it. We sabotage our own community. Hillbilly and I were having a great discussion on this in the Zella channel the other day. I went to a big gun show, one of the biggest ones in New Hampshire, at a big public place. I'm assuming it was public property. There's thousands of people there. But the point is, you could argue property rights and right of association, which are all excellent points. This guy, he's very smart. He's very intelligent. Okay, he can talk. Now, to go in, this is to a gun show. Literally thousands upon thousands, probably like 5,000 inanimate objects that everybody was there to sell, buy, look at, take a picture with, play with, slobber all over, have a wet dream over. And I would say, now it's a generalization, but I'd say 90+% of the people who were working or were going as customers were carrying guns. They were at least there interested in firearms. You would think they would be the pro to a community. You would think they would be right here with us in these seats, trying to learn, trying to connect with people that they can work with in their local communities to affect some change. What was going on? I always open carry, as I said. My friends open carry. That's a whole other story for another day why. That's an endless debate. But this is actually an example of why. We went to go in, we were going to use the bathroom, and I was going to look at a rifle. I want to get a rifle, that's about $2,000, and I want to check one out. And I've been trying to find one because it's not a common rifle. I wanted to go in, and they stopped us at the door. Not only do you have to pay admission and then pay for your stuff, they said I had to go outside, take my firearm out, draw it out in public with thousands of people around walking by, and unload, pop my mag out, and unload into the cigarette bucket that was full of sand right outside, literally from me to that stand, outside the primary door. They told me to unload, dechamber, and point it there just in case I had a negligent discharge. And then they would take my firearm, make sure it was clear, put a zip tie through it, then I would be safe to go in. And I said, well, can people go in concealed? Well, yeah, just concealed. So I could go like this, and it's legal, but this is not. Do you know how many people I saw who are supposed to be the Second Amendment crew, who are supposed to be the patriots, the ride or die, I'll frickin' burn before I give up, that are supposed to be the people sitting here with us now, that if the shit hits the fan, I will stand with that man. You will stand with me. We will be Bundy Ranch. We will be Lexington Green. We will do the ride. We will call the people. And they were walking right along, coming out with red zip ties, hundreds of them. We've already covered this. The firearm, the inanimate object, is not the problem. So why, as an organization who is hosting this, why, as, I don't know that there's any law that said this, I'm sure it was a private organization who said that was their policy, or security, why was that the policy? Because it's not the presence of the firearm. There was probably better than 20,000 firearms there, 10,000 firearms, I don't know, I'm making it up. But literally thousands. It's a huge, it's the ice arena if you know New Hampshire. It's a massive building and there was people walking out like every 3 seconds with 1-2 guns in their hands, okay? Why there do we then take somebody who's a law-abiding gun owner, who's probably passed background checks, who might have training in a constitutional carry state, in a freaking holster, going to a gun show? Why are they singled out? And then why does nobody pick up on that? Why? Now, we can say there's freedom of association. We can say, yeah, they can make their own rules, and there might be a time and place for that. But the 2A community should be boycotting shit like that. Because that is the stuff that we point to the firearm. The liberals don't have to do it. We point to it. Say, oh, well, it's the presence of, you can see that one. That one's going to be, it's just like Hillbilly said here. Antifa doesn't come here. BLM doesn't come here. We self-generate lots of these issues. There's a lot of quotes that could be read, and I hate reading things, but there's a couple quotes that I actually want to read, because they really hit home here. I want somebody to tell me, all right, hold on, the question. So with all that being said, from your experience in your lifetime as the minority of one, do you, right here, feel like we are trending towards more freedom or less freedom? Less. Who disagrees with that? Raise your hand. Shut up in the back. Go.
We weren't listening.
Now, I agree. In the course of my 35 years, with my experience, I believe we're trending towards a whole hell of a lot less freedom. Second question. No matter who's in office, no matter whether it's red or blue or any other version, or now, or 2 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or the next election, whoever's in charge generally, the haves and the have-nots, we're the have-nots, do you agree with the way the country's being run? Are you happy with the way the government is doing their job, overall?
Hell no.
No, it's not about party. We are seeing less freedom in all of our own individual experiences, and we are generally not happy with the powers that be. And if you look at opposing sources, the Democrats and all the others, most of the time, they're not overly that happy with how it goes too. Yes, sometimes they like the bad policy, but there's still huge segments of those people who dislike how the show's being run. Namely, because they think we should all be locked up and have red flag laws just for coming to this event. So they're not happy either. So with those two questions, pretty much everybody in agreement, here's the takeaway. Should we continue to do what we've always done and hand money and your vote, which is the most important thing, if it means something now, hand your vote and money towards parties on any side that will say, well, we just got to win the election and then we'll figure out the values after. That is a quote from Bruce Perlow, who is the current standing chair, if I'm not mistaken, if he hasn't been replaced, he was the current standing chair of the Grafton County Republican Committee, the organization that is in my county that if I want to get politically active in the party that's supposed to represent me, generally speaking, I know there's probably a lot of independents and libertarians here, but generally speaking, the opposing large party, that's what they say. Well, just let's get the vote, and then after we're in power, then we'll tell you what we're going to do. Politicians and the people at large who are in charge, they are like a flag. And it's a great analogy on Flag Day. You run them up the pole, you vote them into office, and depending on which way the damn winds fly, is which way they spin. How can you vote for that when you don't know what they will stand for, when you don't know what they're going to do, when they say they follow a platform and then they get in? And my own Republican representative in my town, Ned Gordon, Rhino, you know what, I'll try to avoid using some nasty language. That Rhino sided with 10 Democrats on an abortion bill. He was the head of a subcommittee, 10 Republicans, 10 Democrats, and Ned Gordon was the chair. It was an even 10-10 split. And my representative, who's asking for my vote and my money, and who is a Republican, voted for the abortion-heavy side. Did not stand with 10. Now we talk about going across the aisle, but that's a crock of crap. And we don't pay attention. We don't look at voting records. We don't go and look at the state pages and see when there's some bill passed, who voted on that, and then we run them out of town politically. We're not active doing that. It takes work. It's tedious. It's annoying. I hate it. We're seeing it more now broadly across the feds, across the federal level, because you saw this gun bill that was being talked about. I believe there was 10 Republicans who voted for that crap. There was 10 Republicans, and nothing like I know, no patriotic conservative people that I know who understand our basic founding principles, who should hold that damn office. 10 of them voted to increase the gun age. Those people should be run out of office and should never hold office again, because they are passing and advocating for things that are directly unconstitutional. on their face value. That is treasonous. That law is null and void. It's like the California assault weapons ban. Yeah, you guys remember like a year and a half ago, some judge said, oh, you can't do that, that's unconstitutional. It took 30 years for somebody to finally get to a court and stand up and say, hey, that assault weapons ban thing that California did, yeah, we gotta figure that out. I don't think that's constitutional. You know what that means? Let's put this into perspective. I'm 35, I'm married, I have a 10-week-old son at home right now. Okay, my wife and I could get pregnant in the course of time it took for somebody to actually question this in a legal way that would make your average American stand up and go, maybe that's not a good law. Because most people, they need the courts, they need these rules, and they need these precedents to give them the way to think because they don't think for themselves. My wife and I could get pregnant, have a child, that child could grow all the way up, go through college, get a degree, possibly get an advanced degree and be a doctor and get a job and possibly get married and have their own damn kid before a backtrack is done on that. And what is the damage done? The left loves to throw a lot of stuff at the wall, things they know are blatantly unconstitutional, because they know you throw enough crap at the wall, something's gonna stick. And the damage is already done. 30 years. What do we know? It's complacency with what you know. I'm not moving to the Amazon where there's 25-foot snakes. Screw that. Because I'm not comfortable with that. I grew up in New Hampshire. I don't mind the snow. The snow's normal. It's comfort with what you know, and when you're brought up in a system, automatically you are more inclined to believe in the system that exists, that you exist in, because that is your normal. Every kid who is born now, this is their start. That's terrifying to me. And I always hear people say, oh, how could you want to have a kid right now? You know, we want to have kids, but we're waiting. How could you bring a kid into the world right now? You know, things are so bad. That's a defeatist, crappy mindset. Because if the people here, that couple, and my wife, and another couple, if the older couples didn't have their kids, if good people won't raise the next generation and steward our values, who will? Nobody, because the left will raise their children. The Islamics, they'll raise their children. The people outside of America are outbreeding us at a crazy margin. Because we're all chasing the white picket fence and the Lamborghini and keeping up with the Joneses and the nice collared shirt. And yet, we're not teaching values at home. We're not raising the next generation. We're not teaching the kids to take care of their young kids. We have 3 generations living in my home. Mom, or grandma, us, and the baby. We're a multi-generational homestead. I don't just get up here and talk smack and bring energy and fire and passion and talk about putting out work without living it. We live on a mountaintop, off-grid, with no running water, no electricity. We use candles, we dip the water out of the well, we do spring water. We are traditionalists because I'll tell you what, when things get bad, I'm already going to be down that road. Because it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. And we have Americans who say they want change, who say, oh, well, I'll do something. Okay. And then they're not willing to stomach up and go to a rally when it's raining. They're not willing to stay all day and sit in the hot sun. They're not willing to give up Friday night bingo, or they can rally anytime, or they can go to an event, or they can go to a school board, unless it's football season. Have you paid attention to any of the damn sports leagues? Is that really stuff you want to be supporting? That adds no value, unless you are employed and your family is physically making a living off of that. Sports brings no value into you. You know what the original American sport is? Not baseball, America's oldest sport. Shooting damn guns is America's oldest sport. Yeah, amen to that. Amen to that. Now, anybody familiar with Henry Thoreau, Walden? Okay, he wrote this book, Walden. He moved out into the woods in Massachusetts, and he built a little cabin and lived that way for a number of years. And he had some really good quotes. Let's start with the one about firearms. Okay? The left and anti-gunners and people who don't want you to have your freedoms, who want to piss on you and tell you it's rain, they always try to build what I call the arbitrary moral high ground. Because their view is somehow nicer or better or they're more loving, that makes them more authoritative. Their debating points are more valuable because they're a better person. That's why we always get portrayed to be bad people, because it's easy to win an argument with a bad person. You just have one, doesn't matter what they say, they're wrong. So let's talk about guns. In the book Walden, Henry David Thoreau was talking about this. He said, "We cannot but pity the boy who has never fired a gun. He is no more humane, while his education has been sadly neglected." If you do not like firearms, that's fine. That doesn't mean I dislike you. If you do not want to carry loaded, I know people, I don't understand it, but I know people who carry a firearm without one in the chamber. I know people who carry 1911s without them locked and loaded with the hammer back and standard method carry. I know people who aren't comfortable. They own tons of guns and they've never carried at all. They'll carry concealed, but God help you if they carry open, or they're crazy staunch Second Amendment supporters, but the second open carry comes in, they're the internet rock star, and they're a couch cowboy, and they want to rain shade on your parade, and yet they're supposed to be the pro-2A, people. You are not a lesser, immoral, evil person because you like firearms. Whether you make a living off firearms content, whether you build them, whether you sell them, whether you're a competition shooter and you get sponsored, whether you kill a bird with them, or a deer with them, or a frickin' home intruder, that does not make you a bad person. But what do we always hear from the left? These morality arguments. You have to stop bending to that crap. You need to learn the articulate debate points and opposing arguments so you can refute this stuff and not just say, well, I'm going to vote different. You need to go out and you need to debate with these people. You need to seek them out. You need to get active. And you know how you get better at conversation? You know how you get better at conveying your points? You freaking practice. Anybody heard of the 10,000 hour? 10,000 hours it takes to master something. There was a big wrestling coach who was big on that. You got to do something for 10,000 hours before you are a master at it. I didn't start public speaking. No matter what you think about public speaking, if you don't like it, I don't care. Don't tell me. No, really. But I didn't start out being able to talk to people and just pour my heart out, and I didn't know all this stuff. This was intentional. What did I say earlier? You have a choice of where to go from here. Will you connect with somebody and say, you know what, that school board meeting that I was going to go to and I keep putting off, I'm finally going to go because that freaking loudmouth on stage said something. And you know what is my responsibility? Because whose fault is all this stuff? All the gun grabbing stuff, whose fault is it? I see a guy point right to himself. Stand right, it's our fault. And it's our parents' fault. Well, I'll tell you what, when it comes to my son, it won't be my